Okay, so the first thing off, Erin Swenlin from decisionpoint.com, and I'm here to go ahead and take symbol requests, and we're going to go through my pick first, and I'll explain to you a little bit about what I do as we go along. So the trade that I'm bringing, the actionable trade, is Discover Financial Services, DFS. And there are a couple of reasons why I like this chart. So first of all, I have the RSI on the top. The RSI is positive right now, and it's sitting in an area where it is not overbought. I have my price momentum oscillator. It's very similar to the PPO. And right now you can see that it is whipsawed into a buy signal. You have the PMO rising with price, so that's a good confirmation. Then I have on balance volume. Not much to say about volume here on the chart, on this particular chart, but I do like to have it just to get a sense of what's going on. Stochastics are also included on my chart, and I look at it as not an overbought, oversold indicator, but really an indicator that just tells me where I want it to be. So, for example, I don't want it to be below 20. That means that there's weakness and you don't want that. So you wouldn't be looking at this as an oversold reading and going, oh, great, it's oversold. Maybe I need to, start looking to get in. You could certainly look at it that way, but for me, I need to see the RSI rising. And in particular, I like to have it above 50, net neutral 50. And best case, is when it gets above 80. That means that you have a lot of internal strength and you want it to stay there. And a lot of times when you get into a nice move to the upside, you'll find that stochastics will sort of hover right around 80. So that's what you're really looking for with stochastics. And then I do relative strength analysis. And the first one is the industry group to the SPY. So this gives me an idea if the industry group is performing well, because as we often will say, um, half of your stock's price movement is really due to what's happening with the sector and the industry group. So you really want to try and get into an industry group where you have rising relative strength against the S&P. Hold on just one second. My dog needs in. I locked him out of the office and he had to come in and bug me. Okay. So rising relative strength also on the stock to the S&P. This is what a lot of people will do anyway. But you can see right now with Discover, we've got rising relative strength for the stock against the S&P. But the key I also include is that I look at the stock relative to its industry group, because I want to find a stock that's performing better than the group as a whole, because that tells me that I have a leader, somebody in a leadership role. And right now you can see that we do have rising relative strength right now on um, on Discover Financial. So this chart is set up the way I like to see them set up. I do a report called Decision Point Diamonds, where I give out 10 stock and ETF picks. In fact, let me just go and show you very quickly that website, if I can get it back here. There we go. So I have 3 subscriptions, and one of them is Decision Point Diamonds. And this is where I will generate 10 stock and ETF picks for you per week. And basically, they'll look similar to what that last chart looked like. I mark them up and let you know why I think the stock looks good or doesn't look good. Wednesday is ETF day, so I do 3 ETFs on Wednesday. So this is kind of primarily for the trader that you might be, that you are in this room doing symbol requests. This is probably the product that might interest you the most. However, the decision point alert, we think, is something you need to have before you even start trading. This is going to give you the trend and condition of the market. It's going to let you know where everything sits, what the bias is. And then we also cover dollar, gold, oil, Bitcoin, bonds, gold miners. All of that's included in this decision point alert report. So you'll have all of the information you need. Another thing that might interest you as a stock symbol person is I have the new decision point scan alert system. And with this, we will send you 10, not 10, I will send you all of the results from my DP diamond scans. That's what I use to pick my diamonds. So you would get all of the results, and then you can decide which symbols you like the best. And that comes out every market day. So that's something to consider as well. So enough of that pitch. Let's get back to the charts. All right, so it looks like at this point we are ready to take some symbol requests. So let's go ahead and take a look. Should I just go from where we have right now, COR, and then work from there? Or do you want me to go? Actually, I see there's enough here. It's cleared out. Okay. I'll start with crowd because I see that at the top. So we'll go there and work our way down. Close this. All right, so you're gonna see this is my style of chart, so it'll work well that's why I explained it in detail to begin with. David, how long do I have to go? I forgot.
Until 1 p.m. Eastern.
Okay,
So
perfect.
about 20 minutes.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure I had the time in right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so CrowdStrike, nice rising trend, which I like to see. Looks like we are getting the personality of the stock right now is a rally and some consolidation, or maybe a little pullback, a rally, a little pullback, a rally, a little pullback. So that tells me that we are probably ready for another rally here. The RSI is positive, which I like to see. It's not overbought. The PMO is turning up right now. So it is on a sell signal, but it's above the zero line, which is what you want to see. And it is starting to turn up. So it does look very interesting to me right now on today's nice rally. The stochastics are also turning up. They are in negative territory, which is something I don't like, but at least they have turned up. Relative strength of this group, the software group, is really starting to improve. I like the stocks that I'm seeing in that area. Relative strength against the S&P, not so great. I mean, it's doing as well as the S&P, and we do want to do at least as good as the S&P, our benchmark. It is performing pretty much in line right now with the group, but overall, it has a rising trend on this relative strength line. So it does tend to be a leader in this software group. So I see some goodness on the chart, but I think you have to always look at a weekly chart. I do mostly short-term trades, but I think it's important to look at the weekly chart and see kind of where it's set up in an intermediate term fashion. It sets you up well. So at this point, we do have that rising trend I pointed out on the daily chart. I do see a possible, and it would be a really wonky one, but you could get a head and shoulders out of this. That's a bearish pattern. But at this point, we don't really have a right shoulder. This neckline would be really out of kilter. So it does look like a topping formation to me, though, which is a bit nerve-wracking. But the PMO, the weekly PMO, is on its way up. And then I use the stock charts technical rank, and that you want to see it above 70%. So the stock charts technical rank basically looks at all of the stocks in one universe, which in this case would be the large caps, and it runs a formula that really is mostly geared toward the intermediate and long term, and you run it through the formula, and then you compare the result to all of the universe, and you mark where it is from 0 to 100% where it falls. So at this point, Crowd is not above 70 on that stock chart's technical rank, but it is rising nicely and headed toward that area. So I'll accept that. So I will say overall, I would give crowd a thumbs up. Let's go to the next one. Core, Cencora. All right, so I'm not a big fan of the healthcare sector right now, so that I have that in the back of my mind. Um, we have medical supplies is the industry group. The industry group itself, you can tell, is not doing that well. It's not doing terribly, but overall, it has been kind of petering off as far as relative strength. So that's something to keep in mind. Remember, half of your stock's price will be affected by the sector and the industry group. And so the sector is not doing that well last time I looked. And the industry group is doing okay, but not great. So we have to keep that in mind. Price has been pulling back. It is holding above the 20 and 50-day EMAs, which I do like. PMO is still rising. It has kind of curled a little bit, but that is in response to this pullback that we're seeing here. Stochastics are headed lower, which is not a good sign. I've seen better charts. This one, at least if you're getting in this group, you can see that this is a stock that is showing leadership. So that's a good thing. But knowing what I know about the healthcare sector and this industry group not performing that great and price pulling back, this could be a good area for a reversal off of these EMAs. But just seeing stochastics doing what they're doing, the PMO turning over, I'm not a big fan of this chart, but let's look at the weekly. And you can see it was on a really nice rising trend. It's now been in this high level consolidation zone, and it's kind of near the top of that zone. So that's another concern here. The weekly PMO has turned down beneath its signal line, and that's a very bearish signal. So not a fan of Cencora. Let's go to NR. And that's the last one I see in here. So hopefully we get some more in here. Pour in. Okay. Yeah, not doing so well. Energy, oil equipment, and services. I'm not a fan of crude oil right now. I mean, I don't think too many are. It's been in quite a decline. Let me look really quickly here, though, at my USO chart to get a more up-to-date look. Yeah, so you can see with crude oil, we had this gap down, prices still remaining at that level. Now, there's a possibility we could see a reverse island where we'd get a gap up from here. But with that PMO now below the zero line, stochastics are now just about below 20. This is a lot of weakness that we're seeing on crude oil, and that's going to put a lot of downside pressure on stocks like New Park Resources here that we have NR. We have a death cross that is about to occur of the 50 and 200-day EMA. That would put this stock in a bear market configuration. The PMO topped well below the zero line and is headed lower on a sell signal. So it's suggesting we're going to get even lower prices from here. RSI negative. Stochastics did turn up, so maybe if you have it and you're thinking about holding it, you could hold it for a little longer. But I suspect we are going to see more decline here. Just the energy sector is really hurting right now. And you can see this industry group is also hurting right now. So not a fan here, but let's look at the weekly. All right, kind of double topping right now, which is not a good sign. Weekly PMO is in decline. This is definitely a toppy formation. I'm not a fan here. I think holding it would be okay, but I think you should prepare for more downside before you get a reversal, if you're going to get a reversal. All right, now they're pouring in. Here we go. Okay, Sam, I'm going to do two of the ones you have in here since I just did two that you already asked for. So we'll take DAKT and go from there. That way we can give everybody a shot here. All right, you can see that this is in technology, electrical components. The group is doing very well. The sector is doing pretty well for technology. Rising trend. Um, the EMAs are kind of squished right now, so they're not giving us too much of a hint as to what is going on here. It's in a rising trend. The RSI is now positive. Stochastics have turned up. The PMO is now bottoming or surging above the signal line. So that's all good. It's performing pretty much in line with the S&P. I'd kind of prefer it to outperform, but this is acceptable. And it is performing in line with its industry group, which is definitely acceptable. So I would give this one a thumbs up, but let's look at the weekly. All right, the weekly chart, we do have the rising trend is intact, but the weekly PMO is in decline on a crossover sell signal. Stock chart's technical rank, though, is sitting above 70% in what I call the hot zone. So that does give us a little bit of po positivity to this weekly chart. But overall, I like this rising trend. It does look like we're going to come back up and test some of these all-time highs. So looking pretty good there. All right. Burlington Coat Factory, I believe. Burlington Stores, yes. Consumer discretionary, which is doing very well. Apparel retailers, which aren't doing very well, as you can see with relative strength. So we got to keep that in mind. But it is performing in line with the SPY, and it is outperforming somewhat its group. So even though the group isn't performing well, it's performing better than the group, and that's helping it to perform in line with the SPY. So that's all okay. I don't like this topping formation, though, that I see. This rounded top is not a positive. The 20-day EMA is now below the 50-day EMA, so that means we have a bearish bias on this chart. We are seeing a nice little rally today, but I don't see anything here that's super exciting. The PMO is flat, really not giving us any information. It's below the zero line, which isn't very good. Stochastics turning up, which looks okay. Overall, I'm not a fan of this chart. I think that you could set your stop below this support level and maybe we'll get that turn since the PMO is trying to turn and stochastics are trying to turn. You could see a rally catch on here, but I think there are just better choices out there. Let's look at the weekly. And we can see the weekly does hold a nice rising trend. It is currently having the weekly PMO on a sell signal, though, but it is well above the zero line. And that's due to this nice rising trend that we've had. And it is coming very close to testing the rising trend. So that's why I'm thinking you could get a reversal here. I just don't see a lot of upside potential right now. Okay, next up, NTNX. All right. Okay, software company. We know that software is doing well. Okay. Rising trend, getting ready to hit some overhead resistance here, but I like this rally. I like the positive RSI. The PMO is turned up. Um, Look at the relative strength. It's improving against the S&P and against the group, and stochastics are rising. So I do like this chart. I think there's some upside potential here. Let me check, see where we are. So if we could get back up to this level, that would be a 13, almost 14% gain. So I think there's some good upside potential on this one. Weekly chart. I like to measure and see how far it is from resistance because that's typically where you're going to find the stumble. That's typically where if it's going to turn down, that's where it's going to happen. So I always measure to see how far I am from overhead resistance. It gives me a really good sense of how much more upside I have available to me. And like I said, in this one, we have about 14%, which is good. I like that. Weekly PMO is on a buy signal, and the stock chart's technical rank just popped into the hot zone above 70. So this one looks pretty good. I like it. NMMNMD. All right. Healthcare biotech. Biotechs are really suffering, and you can see that with that relative strength line. It's really bad. But there are a lot of cats and dogs in biotechs. There's lots of choices, and we certainly could find one. Um, we certainly could find one that's doing well. This one does seem to be doing well, but it is under its 200-day EMA right now, so it's under pressure as far as resistance goes. Um, the PMO though is still rising. Stochastics are rising. Relative strength's okay here. This could be kind of a little flag formation. We might get a nice little pop and a rally here. Um, it does have this overhead resistance to deal with, though. I think you're taking a little bit of a risk here, getting in just because it hasn't really overcome that resistance. It did yesterday, so I guess that's acceptable. Thinking out loud here. I think there's some upside here, and I imagine there's a lot of upside potential here. Let us just see if we could get to this level here where we have these lows and this top. That's a 29% gain. So I can see the attraction here and maybe a small position. See if you can't take advantage of some of that upside potential. And the weekly chart, not a whole lot here. Let's make it log scale. Yeah, not much here. We don't see anything with the PMO really. It's traded very strangely. It's really messed up the PMO in a big way. But you can see in the thumbnail here that the PMO is in decline. It topped beneath the signal line back here. The stock chart's technical rank isn't very high. So we are taking a chance. This would be more of a short-term investment, I would say, than an intermediate term. This one is a little speculative, but it could be interesting with that kind of upside potential. All right, looks like I have time for maybe one, two more. Microns, semiconductors. You know what I'm going to do is we're going to look at the semiconductor chart, because I think it's important to have a sense of what's going on. These are our under the hood charts. These are available to our subscribers. But let's look under the hood. We do see some improvement in stocks above their 20, 50, and 200-day EMAs, stochastics rising. So PMO is turning up. So semiconductors do look poised to do well. So let's go back and look at Micron. And we do have that sense that technology is doing well and semiconductors are starting to do well. You can see that with the relative strength line rising here. The PMO is headed down, though, toward a sell signal. So I don't like that look. It is above the zero line, though, so it's not terrible, terrible. Stochastics are trying to top beneath the net neutral 50. I don't like that. Um, I do see the possibility of a reversal here, and with semiconductors doing well, I would imagine Micron will do well too. But if you look here, we do see a declining tops trend line here on relative strength against the group, which tells me that you might want to look for a different semiconductor than Micron. Probably some better choices out there. I would just go straight over to NVIDIA. look at the difference in its chart. You notice with Micron, we had that big dip and we were just coming out of it. Whereas we had the correction in NVIDIA, but we've already come back and we're hitting these all-time highs.